We're live.
Okay, let's go.
So, as you probably know, what we're doing now, we're really reactivating the whole History and Artifacts Committee, and we really appreciate, you guys making yourself available. It's nice to know a little bit, some of the basics, how you got involved with the club and what have you, but also you all have different stories to tell, and the whole idea is to preserve the legacy of this club. And if you're not around to tell the stories, there's a domino missing, and it's a lot harder to bridge that. And so today, what we'd like to do is, get started and find out, some basic things when you joined the club and why you joined, and if there's anything in particular when you first joined that brought you here, and then we can get into any anecdotal stories you want to tell, and we can edit, so you don't have to be shy. So Howard, when did you join the club?
I joined the club in January of 1964. It happened that I was promoted to a division manager of a chemical company I worked for, and they had an operation down here, and I was asked to move from New York to San Francisco. At the time, I had just purchased a Hinckley 35, brand new, and I was concerned about what am I going to do with the boat, and my boss said, easy, we'll ship it out. So
you bought it back in New York?
I bought it back in New York. So I brought it over to a boatyard, and the company made the arrangements, and they put it on a truck, and I got a call about a week later. It was here, and they unloaded it. The big problem at the time was when I joined the club, the club just had a harbor, which was privately owned via a lease with the club called the Harbor Company. Mm-hmm. And they actually built the harbor, because before then they had didn't have a harbor, they just had some anchorages. Mm-hmm. off the club. At the time that I arrived out here, all of the slips were sold. In fact, what they did at the time was they had difficulty getting members to sign up, so they sold slips to individuals, non-members, and any in turn sold as they left. They could only sell it to a club member. At the time that I arrived out here on the B line, the asking price was something like $30,000.
Wow, a lot of money then.
Which was a lot of money. On A line, it was up close to $50,000, and they were takers.
Wow. Had the seawall been built by then, or
yes, the seawall, as part of the lease arrangement with the harbor company, they were required to put in a seawall. The seawall, it was interesting in that there was a member who was a high official in the Southern Pacific Railroad, and he mentioned that they were dismantling an old bridge which had creosote timbers on it, and they were able to essentially, he arranged and then shipped down by Southern Pacific cars, so that the actual cost of the breakwater was not expensive.
Right.
The seawall lasted until 1998, when they had that big storm, which came close to taking out the entire harbor. That the water, the water was going well over the breakwater, and what saved the harbor was the wind direction was such that the brunt of the storm hit the San Francisco Yacht Club, that Angel Island blocked most of the storm damage. But the problem then was that I think there was something like 2 years or 3 years left in the lease, and the question came up of what to do. Initially, the idea was that we would renew the lease and go out and borrow the money and do that, but Peter Hogg at the time, who was Commodore, said absolutely not. It should be part of the club, and that that prevailed, so that the harbor as it exists today is because Peter Hogg said we will not continue with the lease, and that the club is, I think, far better off right now, being run by the members.
Being proprietary, yeah, because it's not that big of a harbor in the first place.
Right. And I was on the harbor reconstruction committee, in which was formed to be able to finance and design. And the initial course, what we did is with San Francisco Yacht Club had just put in a concrete breakwater, and we used their numbers, and then lo and behold, when we did a survey, we found that the estimate that we had is such because their mud line to the hard mud and the rock was something like 15 feet, and ours was something like 35 feet. So it required that we have concrete piles, which were not, were just too costly to do, and the design that came up based upon Jeff McQueen, who was really an expert in concrete and stuff like that, said to look at steel sheet piles, and that's what we did, and that we drove the steel piles down, and lo and behold, they discovered that the survey was that the depth close to the club was deeper than the survey showed, which in turn meant that it would be more costly, and we landed up with a kind of lawsuit with the builder and so on, but that was settled. As part of the building of the harbor, it required that the initial walkways, which had plywood boards that you walked on, was changed to 2x6 redwood.
More substantial.
And later, when I was on the committee, I authorized and the committee agreed that we put in the plastic 2x6s, which screw down, which means that today, if there's a breakage of a line, we don't have to tear up the wood, which in turn destroys it. We just lifted the screws and we
went into that section. And, yeah.
So that was the history of the harbor. But the interesting thing, going back to my initial idea, was that when we came out here, we visited the Corinthian, and then we walked over to San Francisco because we knew from nothing. And in San Francisco, we looked around, nobody said, "Can we help you?" and so on. And here, the Commodore at the time, who was Commodore Wade, came up to me and said, "Can I help you?" And he introduced us. In fact, he took us, we invited us over to dinner to introduce us to San Francisco and so on. And we became a member. The membership at that time, can I go into it?
Sure.
Okay. Was a male chauvinist pig operation.
You could participate as a female if you were married to a member, is what.
Yeah, but the thing was, but you couldn't become a member. But however, if your husband died, you still could maintain the membership, which is the same today. So when you look at the starting point when people came in, my 1964, there's just two other people that is 1963, 64, and if you look at the others, they're widows that are still alive.
Still alive. They got grandmothered in.
That got grandmothered in.
You know, you made a very interesting point, I thought, that hopefully it's part of that legacy, and looking at the past is sort of a way to think about the future. Is I was going to ask you, and you answered it even before, was that on your committee you had some people that had professional experience, like Jeff McQueen. And I think what's really important is we've got a lot of talented people, and you know, we have resources right here, and I think that helped a lot. You know, plus it's a bonding thing as well. But to have people like that.
You have a problem there. Is first of all, the new members don't fill out an experience form that can be used, that you go through that Mr. So-and-so is an expert on wooden piles or whatever it is. Also, you have the problem is that the members who are in control now feel that they know what they're doing, and the old people are just a pain in the neck, and that they and we have a Friday luncheon in which that's always been a topic. I have the experience, and I voiced my opinion, and it went on deaf ears. Yeah. So that's part of a club operation. I mean, it's a fault of any organization. The people who retired they're not interested in their experience.
Yeah.
And the one of the things in my management experience is it was usually somebody called a brain surgeon, who, whatever the problem was, you go to say, "Hey, Harry, what do we do?" And even if he didn't know, he would look it up and do the surgery. Here, there's a division between the old people and new people.
Well, hopefully the effect of our committee and having more visibility and also documenting our past may help with that and get people more involved in communicating. And of course, you have some people that join a club and they want to keep it very separate from the rest of their life and what they do. This is for recreation. But I do believe and share with you the belief that there are people, when asked whether they have the experience and would they be interested in rising to the occasion, they would be. One more quick question for you, and then I want to get over to Dana. So when you bought your boat in New York, was that your first boat?
No, I started off with a runabout, and then I got a 24-foot sailboat that had 2 quarter berths in it, and it was something like 5'4" head thing, and I never banged my head. The problem banging your head is when it's so close that you should. But you know, look, I don't want to dominate the thing, but if I look at the club today, it's not the club that I joined. Mm-hmm. It's entirely different. Mm-hmm. I think the life experience of most of the members is entirely different. You take the whole concept of the cooks and waiters. I mean, I don't know if you're aware of it.
Yes.
They shut down the whole operation of the club to women. And if you went then into the club and the bar, there'd be a couple of TVs with pornographic films, and then they had the evening cooks and waiters thing, which actually were cooked by members.
Right.
And one last story to show you how it's changed. Every year they would call off the names of the people that have left us, so, by death, and they'd ring the bell. And I remember vividly the Commodore was saying there was a little chuckled and he said, you know, this is a very serious, somber moment. And with that, 4 women in bare breasts come out doing the samba. It gives you the sense of how things have changed.
Right, right. It has, in not just at the club. Dana, you have a real interesting background in that your family's in the woodwork of this place.
Yeah. Now, first of all, I would like to say that to have a Hinckley sailboat back in the old days,
Yeah.
the Hinkleys were top shelf, no dust.
They were like the Cadillac, huh?
Oh,
No, they're Bentley.
Bentley.
Yeah.
you know, and to this day, even the Hinckley picnic boat is just wonderful, wonderful craft.
Okay. I paid the grand sum of $15,200 for the Hinckley 35.
35 feet long.
Yeah.
And how much would that boat be today?
$500,000.
No, that
Actually-
age, 1960.
No.
Oh,
If you were to go
first of
out,
all,
a Hinckley built to the same kind of specifications, built and sold today.
First of all,
Could you even buy one?
No, the craftsmen aren't there anymore.
No.
Craftsmen aren't there?
Yeah.
You have some Chinese boats that have very good craftsmen, which I've looked at. But again, you know, I couldn't afford one of those boats. And one of the problems I have now, health-wise, I sold, you know, I got rid of out of boating just as my health started to deteriorate. So,
Yeah. When you came out here, you had the new boat, you had the new position. Had you been in a yacht club back east, or was this?
yeah, I was a member of a yacht club back east.
How did this compare?
Different culture.
Uh-huh.
You know, here it was a true old man sailing concept that back east it was a family type thing.
Mhm.
So, which was important. And of course my wife never forgave the club for not having a strong women's movement when we met. So she really felt out of the sun. And so I can't, when was really the women started to gain?
Do you remember?
The women's auxiliary, I think, started probably in the 70s. Because I remember in the 60s walking in the bar and seeing Doc Romick and Hal Monazon and Marin Matosich and Bob Bain and all of these guys sitting up at the bar, and there were no women, you know, and to this day, you know, it's like, is the club better? Is the club worse? I don't know, but the women are in there today,
Yeah.
and it's not even called the Women's Auxiliary anymore.
No.
It's called the Women's
The Corinthian women.
Corinthian Women.
And they take and go.
And I don't mind if a woman comes into the bar. But back in the old days, respectable women didn't come up onto the main deck and drink in the bar. You know?
Even if they were with their husband.
Right, yeah. Because on the weekends, the men would be drinking and carousing upstairs, and the women and the families, if they brought their children over, would be downstairs on the lower deck. And that was accepted.
So you had very clear separation.
You know, it was different,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, one of the things that I thought was interesting is how the club financed its improvements. When I joined the club, first of all, they had the weekend repair and construction crews.
Pelican,
So they would
the
go out,
Pelicans.
they would,
That was the role of the Pelicans?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
we-
and-
That was Howard and
and we,
Elma.
okay, and we paid the penalty just recently in terms of workmanship, because when they were doing the upstairs bar, they had to take the full ceiling out, and they looked at the trusses, and they discovered that if a 4x8 was just too short, they just nailed and spliced in a 3-foot section and put in, so they had to remove that. So that, was cheap at the time, but expensive.
You paid in the long
now.
run, yeah.
Also, the club was financed improvements by issuing bonds to club members.
Hmm.
And I remember that there was a,
In the 70s.
and that when I joined the club, they did a renovation of the present bar, but they did not do a renovation of the present dining room. So what they did was they floated a 5-year bond with the members, where each year 20% of the bonds would be retired. And what they would do is they had a lottery type thing pulling out who got stuck and get their money back, because it was at that time they were giving good interest. And unfortunately, I was one of the first people that they paid back on the thing. But again, again with finances, when we built the breakwater, we were talking about finally about $1.8 million, of which there was talk about doing the same thing. And a member who was no longer alive said to me, "What is the backing of the bonds? Is it the club?" And somebody said, "Probably." He says, "Look, I'll take the whole thing." And of course, wiser heads said, "No, we don't want a member who has that." And they actually got the, I think, Wells Fargo to initiate.
And that was one of the first times that we went outside
Yeah.
for debt.
No, we
Yeah,
went
yeah.
outside twice
Twice?
for debt with members,
Yeah.
because both times my father was involved. Where Schneider was involved.
I'm not familiar with these people, so
Uh,
honestly.
And, but it was done twice before, and then it was done with Wells Fargo.
So that was done in place of assessing the members.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't
Yeah.
have any assessments.
No, the idea of assessment was dangerous
Mhm.
because you wanted to get, enough members to vote yes.
Mhm.
And of course, most of the members were,
Some members
So-
were cab drivers.
didn't have the wherewithal
Sure.
to do it.
Sure.
That was part of the club mystique at the time. You're talking about Pneumonia Alley, the history of Pneumonia Alley.
Not
No.
exactly.
Well, it started off in which, before they built the Golden Gate Bridge, we had numerous members who lived in San Francisco,
Yes.
and they took the ferry over, and that the lockers essentially had bunks in them, and
Wow.
Here, I'll let you look at this first. I have copies of these
and that,
photos over there
Wow.
in our scrapbook.
And-
So they came over for the weekend. They took
they
the
called it Pneumonia Alley because, shall we say, it was drafty then, and it's drafty now.
Right.
On
Right.
the thing. And I think, who was it? John Culver told me at the time, he says that the last person gave up his bunk about 5 or 6 years ago.
Wow. And typically it would be just the men that would come over, they'd leave their families?
Oh, yeah, it's a men's club, please.
Uh,
Why do you insist?
On the weekends, sometimes, and for special events, the women and the children would come over too on the weekends.
But,
For the most part, it was a men's club.
okay. One of the things which I don't know is, I know that there was a dispute with the yacht club in San Francisco, which suddenly some members said, we're leaving, and they came over here and formed the Corinthian. I don't know the history of that. Do you know that?
Originally,
The 51 guys.
San Francisco Yacht Club went over to Sausalito, and San Francisco Yacht Club was composed of members who felt that, well, we need to have big boats and big money backing sailing, and it's a real men's sport. And the people that started Corinthian Yacht Club said, no, you guys have it all wrong. You have to enjoy sailing. You know, you don't necessarily have to be a sailor that races, but you have to be a sailor. And we like sailors. We like big sailors. We like small sailors. We like sailors, and that was when and where Corinthian split off from the guys from San Francisco Yacht Club, which at that point was in Sausalito.
Yes. Do you know what the reason is that our official title as a club is the Corinthian Yacht Club of San Francisco?
Do you?
No, I don't. I'm asking.
It's because most of the members were of San Francisco, and Corinthian members were, I don't know, let's go look up the member of Corinthian, or the lexical meaning of Corinthian. But essentially it happened because there was a difference of opinion between what was important, and then we said, no, this is really important. We need to be here for everybody.
Right, right. Why don't you give us a quick little overview of your family's history with this club? Because
Well, I just happen to have some visual aids with me. This is an early bumper. And this was made by my grandfather and my father at the Johnson and Joseph Sail Loft in San Francisco, which became C.J. Hendry.
wow,
Ships Chandlers.
wow.
And at C.J. Hendry, my father and my grandfather also made steps for Jacob's ladders. Okay, my grandfather was a sailmaker. My great uncle was a machinist, and as a machinist, he worked with boilers, and boilermakers and machinists would make fittings for steam heated apartments. Okay? Let's see, what else do I have there? So my German part of my family originally came to San Francisco back in the 1860s, 1870s. My great uncle and grandfather were born in the 1880s, 1890s. My father was born in the 10s, 1910, and so on and so forth. This right here is a plaque that was given to my grandfather, and it says Corinthian Yacht Club, won by Al Hemberger for the old timers rate, September 28, 1941. Let's see, what else do I have? I have an early cooks and waiters photo of when before the clubhouse was built, and my
That would be before 1912. Right, the new clubhouse was in 1912, this is prior to that.
yeah, is that what that looks like?
Yep.
And then let's see, here we also have after 1912, and this was when the new club was built, before the harbor was built. This was an extension of the old harbor.
Wow.
This was the old yacht club before Pneumonia Alley was built.
That's-
What's really important about this is one of the things that we're doing as a committee is we're going to, in the process of securing a location where we will have an archive where people can actually go in, and for members that are willing to share some of this on loan or whatever, other members will be able to come in now and we'll have it also categorized, and I think this will also help reinforce the history of our club, and we're excited about that. These conversations that we're having will be very much a part of that as well. And I must tell you, every conversation that we have is different. That's what makes it so nice. It's the personal experiences that you've had that you're willing to share that I think gives us an idea of the texture of the club.
As a suggestion, I would think you could explore how and when the club went co-ed. Because there was a major change in the structure of the club. How did it happen?
Yeah, and also there was a period where I believe we were having trouble attracting members. And I think there was a big push to bring in new members to the club, and I'm sure that was met with differing opinions as to doing that. And then again, more recently, we're finding we're having more younger members come in, which is important for the club to keep going and all that. But that's not always met with a positive response.
Well, of course, the question is, what is the physical facilities that can support X number of members?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the more the better for some people, and but that will overwhelm the club.
Right.
And the finance people look at it: more members, more money, more things that we can do.
Right. Certainly, when you have a club, you run into cross currents.
Yeah. There's always regimes. If you look over the years I've been members, one group has control and maintains control and then loses it, another group comes in saying, those idiots, how did they run the thing this way? And they change things around. That's the concept of clubs.
Sure.
And it's also politics.
Yeah, certainly. And, it seems, at least my experience has been that that this club seems to be a little less political than some clubs can be. Their clubs have been torn apart by politics.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, we have healthy conversations, let's put it that way, but it's not tearing us apart. So, with your history with the club, what was it like being a kid in this club? Because it was a club of adults primarily.
It was a club of adults, but when I was actually in high school, I used to come here and we would go and work on a friend's boat out in front of the club here. And we'd be sanding and painting, and we'd be able to come up to the galley and order a burger and a shake almost any day of the week during the summer. And, milkshake, it's like nobody can come up and get a milkshake anymore for a child's member to come up and just walk to the galley and get a burger. They can't do that anymore. And that's kind of sad. It's sad when you don't think about the things that really kept this club functioning. And it's important to remember the history and to respect the history. And it's okay for change to happen, but use a little wisdom when you're saying, let's change this or let's do that. Walk and talk to some of the people that it's really going to affect and say, what do you think about this or what do you think about that? And then you need to say, well, how do you think we can maybe move in that direction while it isn't going to offend you? Because a lot of the people now really offend me. And a lot of the things that they're doing. And
But back to the history.
okay.
No, seriously. You have been tasked with cooks and waiters for a number of years now. Explain how that started.
Cooks and Waiters was the annual dinner for Corinthian Yacht Club. And it was men, because back in the old days it was men who were the members. And so it was the annual dinner for men.
Was that considered to be the event of the year at the Corinthian?
Of course. Of course, that was the top shelf, no dust. And that is why over the years, you saw that we tried it at hotels and then we decided to bring it back to the club because all of a sudden we had this beautiful ballroom upstairs. And up there, we could do what we wanted and prepare the meal and it would be prepared to our standard. And so there were actually two groups. There were the cooks and waiters, and then there were also the guests. And the cooks and waiters all worked on Saturday preparing what was going to happen on Sunday. And on Sunday, just guests would come in. Okay. And my family has been making the split pea soup forever and ever and ever. And I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of what my grandfather and my great uncle that you cook.
The question I have, why did it stop,
What?
the cooks and waiters?
It hasn't
Well, it
stopped.
hasn't stopped.
But I mean, we don't do the cooking anymore.
Yeah, we do.
Excuse me.
He's the head chef, I'm the head waiter, what are you talking about?
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
You're coming next year.
I prepare the split pea soup every year.
Okay.
If you
I'm gonna
can't
buy you a
stand the
ticket.
handle up in the soup, it's not split pea soup. I start 3 days ahead. You know, boiling the ham hocks.
Okay. I take
And if
that back.
one bit of the soup is on the brim of he's complaints.
So-
I mean, the waiters and the cooks, you know.
We work very hard. It's not always
So-
a particularly successful event because a lot of the women have gotten their husbands to say, "Oh no, I won't go to that. That might offend you, my dear." And so, you know, a lot of the men don't go because they don't want to create problems. The men can't stand up to their wives and say, "Listen, honey, I'm going to do this. You know, you can go shopping. You know, I'll go here." And you want to know something? There are some days that I wish that those guys had stayed home because they don't do any work on Saturday.
Right.
You know, so, but nonetheless, it's still an event that stays and continues and continues. And we believe in it. And even if there are only 10 people there, it will always be the annual dinner of the club.
Howard, did you find that in addition, obviously, having the wonderful boat that you had and you're spending a lot of time on that, but did you spend a fair bit of time in the club socially? And what was your experience, for instance, with dining here and the bar? I know in the old days we had bartenders that were here for years. And, you know, as a fellow who's been to a bar more than once,
Have you?
knowing your bartender, and more importantly, your bartender knowing you, is very, very important.
Well, unfortunately, you're asking the wrong guy in terms of alcohol because
Ooh,
if
ooh,
I had one glass of
pick
wine,
me!
that I can't really answer that.
How about
my
dining?
wife and myself are very picky about food, and over the years, the food has gone from okay to horrible, and
It's really good now.
so that you know, I like the brunches.
Mm-hmm.
I think the brunches are priced wonderful for me, and I can get what I want, and it's good for entertaining because we can get there at 11 and we can get shoot it out at about 2:30, and the ambience and so on is wonderful. At night, I don't know. It's hard to answer that. But as for alcohol, I can't think.
Well, back to the history. How old were you when they let you have your first drink at the Corinthian bar?
I was 21.
How old were you when you took your first drink at the bar?
It had always been just such a high point to be able to come up to the bar and get to respect and order a drink and get the drink that you had ordered, and to know that that bartender had been there for a while, and they gave you a smile and they gave, "How you doing?" And they give you the respect and the joy to really enjoy what you were doing. It was very seldom that people really got out of hand here, but it has happened. I really care for, a lot of the people that serve in the bar and that serve in the restaurant here. And because we're not really an easy crew to get along with.
Hey Dana, did you show all your stuff? I know I stepped out for a few minutes. I want the steam one is totally cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Steam heated apartment.
This was made back in the 40s. Because and it was downstairs in the lockers downstairs. Because my family has had a locker here for many years. Because this was where my Uncle Eddie came and spent time. For many years of his life until he died.
So does this, for you, Howard, still, you get the feel of a yacht club though here? Is that, is the spirit still here, do you think?
Of course, not owning a boat anymore, I'm not in tune with a lot goes on. We have every Friday a group of us get together and talk about boating things and how horrible the club's being run and so on, and so on.
But you keep coming back.
We keep coming back. The menu drives me bonkers because it's the same thing over and over on a Friday.
What would you like to see on the menu?
Well, today I had soup and salad and I brought my own roll.
Okay. What was it, tofu roll or what?
A sesame roll.
Okay.
It was something like my grandmother would have done.
On the thing. But look,
People are
it's a
listening.
club.
What do you want to see on the menu? What do you
and
want to
that
see?
the number of meals that they serve is not substantial enough really to run a true restaurant. I mean, I have experience in the restaurant business, and I know how difficult it is for the club to run the thing, to maintain a profit. And when I looked at the annual statement, essentially, I think they lost a couple of $1,000. That's not bad, to have 600 so paying members, divide that up. So how much a month to maintain the restaurant? But if you look at Fridays at lunchtime here, once in a while a bunch of women come, but other than that, very few people attend the thing. It's now driven completely by the catering business, and that which they depend upon for bringing some of the costs down. Now,
Do you ever go to San Francisco Yacht Club for lunch?
yes,
What do you think about their menu?
it's the same. Look,
What?
it's just, look. You got to thing is when you have food that is institutional food or some whatever it is, it's terrible. So it might be good to eat it once in a while, but you get tired of the same thing. But they have no choice. I mean, what are they going to do? Is go out to the chef and say, I want the scrambled eggs and bacon today? Can't do it. You got to look at the menu.
You get scrambled eggs and bacon here.
When?
Cooks and waiters in the morning.
Yeah, that's the only time. You can't get it Wednesday, Thursday,
No.
Friday, Saturday.
And you
or
got to
Sunday.
fight for the burgers for lunch. I don't know what
No.
that's about.
No, I think the events that they have, such as the events with the Crab Fest and the shrimp and so on, I like to.
You enjoy those?
We've tried twice the Thanksgiving dinner, and it's not our cup of tea in terms of how it's seasoned and everything, because I've been brought up in a particular way a turkey should be cooked. And the chef looks at it a different way.
It should be cooked.
on the
Got
thing.
shot.
I haven't seen the latest statistics, but is the number of members eating per month increasing?
I don't see those statistics, so I don't know.
Only 25% of the revenue is what you see. It's
Yeah, and if
We're
you
doing-
look at
we're doing a lot more.
25%, It's
with the
the,
catering. You never see that.
it's the old timers, I think Glenn did a little survey some time ago of the, who spends the money here. And we have, lifetime members don't pay dues, but they pick up a good portion of the total expenses of the restaurant.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah. We're getting close to the end here. Question along the lines of Lynn talking about history. I'd like to ask both of you, is there anyone member during your time of being in club that stands out in your mind? Someone who either you felt did a lot for the club and was instrumental, or because there have been club members that have been very, very active and they put the club first, and yeah, I'm just curious, anyone that comes to
Well,
mind.
one of the things I observed is the burnout of the Commodores. Is that if you look at the Commodores, they kind of disappear. And I'm wondering why. What's wrong? Is the club been so bad to them in terms of politics that they say screw it?
I think it's more a matter of you are really the 3 years you are in deep. Because you start off as a rear. In most instances, we've had some exceptions, but starting out, as a rear Commodore with certain duties, and then moving into being the Vice Commodore, and then ultimately being the head honcho. There's a lot of work involved. You're at a lot of meetings and all of that, and I think what I've found is some disappear, but others I find take a year off.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, they take it seriously. Since I've been here, and I'm a newer member, what I've seen is they're very, very
Well, I
serious about that.
find it interesting if you interview them to find out why they got burned out, because I think that it's important for the future. Now, one of the things that if you look at the picture board at the hall there, it was always 2 years that you were Commodore, and they changed it. And the reason I was told was that people didn't want to wait 4 years to become Commodore
Right.
on the thing. But again, how long does it take to learn the? Or it could be,
The idiosyncrasies are manipulating the club.
or you could change having the Commodore to be slowly takes over some of the duties of the Commodore before he becomes Commodore. I think that should be examined. But again, that's my, it's my
Sure.
opinion.
Sure. Well, I agree with you. That once you've done all those, assuming you've been in all 3 of those roles, while you may be tired, you sort of now have an emeritus position as a staff Commodore, and we do have an annual staff Commodore lunch, and for the most part now I've only been a member for about 12 years, but most of them I've seen. Some may have moved away, but it is curious. But it's a big job, and especially if you're still working,
Yeah.
you've got a balancing act.
That's it.
So
Well, the other thing that concerns me is this whole master plan for reconstruction. And I view the thing is what they're doing is they're improving the staff accommodations, they're improving the kitchen accommodations, but they're not improving the membership's ability to enjoy things. Also, the amount of money that we're talking about is way too low, because if I look at building the
wall.
bathrooms that they have,
Yeah.
that the cost estimate and the final cost was so ridiculously different that what we gained from it, and it's over, what is it, 4 years now since they did the thing, we landed up with a bathroom.
I think part of the concern, and again, I'm a newer member, so maybe it's not quite proper for me to say, but I think we have a grand old dame here, but she's not getting any younger. And I think the concern is that as she gets older, and of course the cost of everything has gone up exponentially, but trying to take care of as much of that deferred maintenance as possible so that we stay above the water, just like we want to stay above the grass. We want her to stay above the water.
Gentlemen, okay, I gotta, forgive me to interrupt. We are trying to get some history here. We've been talking for the last 20 minutes about contemporary problems, contemporary menus, contemporary finances, and I really don't care. I am interested in the history of this club and your involvement in the history of the club. For example, Dana has just been holding up some interesting badges that go back a long time. Could you please explain what those are?
These are all past Burgies on the front of different Commodore's jackets.
Would you
As you can tell, they're all 3 stars.
would you tear these off people's backs?
Yeah. Yes,
Question.
of course.
Where'd they come
So,
from?
Dana, does
Yeah.
that mean you won the fight?
So was that
I have-
commonplace for a incoming Commodore to have their own design?
No,
No. Okay.
no, they're just different generations of different years. And I've been entrusted with different flags and from different Commodores.
Mm-hmm.
And we're Commodores and past Commodores. And I feel very honored to be given that trust because they know I'm not going to screw around with it. They know that I'm going to keep it and I'm going to do my best to stick to the basic principles that we know and we love and we hold dear here at the club. Somebody who just joins the club, God bless them. Thank you. Welcome to the club. But now you need to understand the history. You need to understand where we came from. I'm not saying that we can't change, but I am saying give me some respect for where I've been, where I've come from, and explain to me, be sensitive about saying where we need to go. That's respectful.
Has the club over time changed the flags? The Burgies for our flag officers, or those evolved?
No, those have stayed the same, but there's different. We used to go to Joe Harris, and we would go to just different people to make or to manufacture the different Burgies were stated by a Commodore, and so there would be slight differences that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Are there years on any of those,
No.
or no? We did just have to guess the best we can.
Yes.
Again, that's
I would love to be able to say, this was 1932, and this was 41. The only thing that I can say is this was given to my Uncle Eddie, to the Jew cook from the Saturday Night Club, November 16, 1929.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Well, again, we're very serious about putting together an archive that will, hopefully we can use some of these things or put them out on loan and this is going to be an archive where people can actually go in and look at
Look
this.
and feel and
Right,
touch.
right.
I have, this is only a small portion of what I have. I have my grandfather's ditty bag that he would use when he went on to a sailing ship to repair a sail.
Well, this is all stuff that we're very,
Now we're talking
Very
about Egyptian cotton.
Sweet.
No, they,
So where, do you have this stuff at home? Yeah?
great, yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
put-
guys, if we get our archive room together, I'm sure Dana will trust us. But we gotta get our room together first.
Right,
Yeah.
right, absolutely.
I want to make sure that history is going to be appreciated and respected. Otherwise, there are other places to.
Another thing that we're doing is we're taking the book that was published in 1986, our centennial,
yeah,
and we've digitized that and we're going to replicate it. And actually, I believe, I don't want to speak for membership, but I believe when they put together a new member kit, that will be part of it as well. So we're taking it back to, again,
So
the fabric of the organization.
So that people will understand where we came from, where we are, where we might be thinking of where we are going,
Mhm.
and how to be respectful of that.
ask a quick, if we canvassed our membership and said, what is the cooks and waiters dinner? How many people could actually give a true answer?
You mean, I asked them, did you really know that this was the oldest? The oldest?
Look, I asked the question.
Yeah, I know.
Please, please.
In terms of the genesis of it, probably many don't. Although, including some people that participate now and that bring
Oh,
people
so-
here. But I think something like that was the event of the year. I think certainly within our archive, whether we've got something going way back that describes it, or whether we write something.
Well, I'm not here to tell you anything, but I would suggest that you have a video of the cooks and waiters, and then with the idea and the background of the thing is join us, and this is, and so on, so on and so forth, and participate rather than just be considered as a dinner. But that's my
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a
Yeah.
big deal to go to that.
you know.
That it's underlying is the meaning behind it,
Right.
and the historic
And
purpose
join
behind
us
it.
in the historic.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Um,
Well, this is all very helpful, and it's something, you know, as I said, everyone we talk to has a different story and different views, and what we want to do is take all of this and put it together and hopefully get something that will be meaningful to the
For
people that are in.
everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely.
when will you edit this?
We've still got, it probably will be the early part of next year. We're going down through our list methodically of
The
talking.
reason I'm asking, my wife insists that she looks at this.
What I'm gonna do
Yeah.
is, what I do is on Monday morning, I take to my office, because I have fancy high-speed internet.
Yeah,
I will upload it on YouTube, and I'll look for your email address and I'll send you a link.
that'd be wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This way I have to have my wife be happy.
Yeah, well,
And
she's probably think you're at
You
North
want to
Beach.
keep wives
She
happy.
thinks you're at North Beach right now or something.
Well, what you'll be seeing is not edited
It's
at
not
all.
edited.
No,
I'm just
understand.
putting it out there. The
I
last guy
understand.
says, I want to send to my grandkid. I say, here it is. Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Fast forward to your reply.
You've told your wife that she can come to the club now?
Only if she wears a garment that the Arab women wear.
Oh,
A burqa.
we're all paying the Corinthian women dues anyway, so what difference does it make?
This is why we edit.
We have to wear burkas too.
Yeah,
All right.
and we pay for it.
Well, gentlemen, I really want to thank you. We all want to thank you for your time,
look
and
around,
I hope
Dana, you show all
I
your
hope
stuff?
this is worthwhile
Did you
for
show all
you.
your stuff?
You know, it took you a little bit down memory lane, and you know, we, as I said, there's just a lot of history here,
Yeah.
and we're doing our best to capture it.